On today's episode, we're going to be learning about the liminal space. What is the liminal space, you're thinking or wondering? Well, it's the transitionary space we enter once we've left what was, but we've not yet arrived to what's next. Are you in a critical phase of your life, or you feel your life is changing, or you're at a crossroads? We've touched many subjects on this podcast that talk about being at a crossroad or the challenge of making a life-changing decision. The liminal space is exactly that, no matter what the situation you're going through. It's that space where you once were and you're about to become something else. So, if this interests you, this is what we're going to be talking about today on today's episode. Welcome aboard the podcast, A Woman's Spark with Janik, a place to show women how powerful they are and remind them of the spark that they carry, the strength that gets us up every time, a place to feel seen and understood when we don't fully have what it takes to get back up on a hard day. This podcast is to help you heal and become the best version of yourself during the roller coaster of life. We're building a community or a sorority of women who wants to help one another and inspire each other to become stronger and more united, just as we were born to be. Let's change the world of women, one conversation at a time. Today's episode's different to the other ones. We're not talking about someone's experience or life-changing event, but we're talking about all the situations, the point where you start feeling yourself change, the place where you often don't fully recognize yourself, the liminal space. Our guest today is here to elaborate on it. She's making a living out of teaching about this space and how to adapt to it. We're all touched at one point in our lives by this liminal point. So why not understand it better? Today, we have Samantha Kris as our guest of honor. She was just recognized by Microsoft as one of the top 10 speakers to follow in 2025 and was recognized as the top executive coach in 2024. She's also had the #1 TED Talk on goal setting. This is only a small list of what an incredible journey of successes she's had. Stay tuned to find out more about Samantha Kris after this short break. Welcome back to A Woman's Spark podcast with Janik. Today we have on our podcast a beautiful, shining, sparkling woman. Her name is Samantha Kris, as I mentioned earlier. She's a best-selling author, an award-winning speaker, reinvention practitioner, and she also helps impact-driven CEOs achieve their goals. Please welcome our spark of the day, Samantha Kris. Hi, Sam.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on with your busy schedule. I'm very pleased to have you on board the podcast.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So we're talking about the liminal space. Can you tell us what that is?
Again, in fact, I'm so delighted to. This is something that since I have discovered it, since I have had a name for it, I haven't stopped thinking about it. And it's one of those things that once you see, you can't unsee. Excuse me. So liminal space is a transitionary space that you enter once you've left what was, but you've not yet arrived at what's next. And once I start to explain a little bit about how this space feels, my hunch is that you're going to know exactly what it is and have probably been there many times throughout your life. But we don't really know what to call it. So this space is kind of, if you can think about being suspended between two realities, who you were and who you are becoming.
Okay.
It's a very uncomfortable space because we're leaving the comfort of what we know and we're stepping into or crossing the threshold into who we are becoming, who we don't quite know yet either. And there are physical liminal spaces. So if you think about a bridge or a staircase or even a parking lot, it
Okay.
serves as this transitionary space that gets you from point A to point B. You must cross this space to get through to where it is that you're going. We have these emotional liminal spaces, these philosophical liminal spaces, and we feel like we step into kind of the unknown. We are very much in transition when we step into this space. And so if you think about the birth of a new child, starting a new job, starting or ending a relationship, you enter this space where you've kind of left the life that you knew and you're stepping into this new version of you that you aren't quite familiar with yet.
Okay. And I mean, the physical liminal space, easy. We understand it. You're in your car, you're crossing from one land to another. Now, if we're going to look into more the emotional part of it, okay, yes, let's say we're talking about a relationship is ending and the next phase of your life.
Mhm.
But what are the signs and symptoms that are attached to that liminal space?
So, something that might be helpful to think about, we've heard of subliminal messaging, right? So, subliminal happens beneath the threshold of consciousness.
Mhm.
Liminal means it crosses that threshold. So we start to feel, we start to sense that something is changing. But just because we can feel it and we are aware of it doesn't mean that we necessarily understand it just yet. So typically, I would say the first kind of symptom or sign that you're stepping into this space is that you start to feel some friction with your past life or kind of present life that no longer feels like it fits who you are at that moment. Oftentimes, I will encourage people who are starting to recognize that, like, something just feels off or different or like something is changing and I can't quite pinpoint it, I'll encourage them to think about their core values and what it is that's really, really important to you. There's a good chance that those have evolved over time and that you haven't necessarily taken stock of what those are in this current iteration of who you are. So, this friction that we're sometimes feeling is a result of these core values being unmet, ignored, or in some cases violated.
Mhm.
So I do encourage as a first step that signal of like, hey, something feels a little bit off. I can't quite pinpoint what it is. To start with understanding what is it that I value? Are those values being met? Am I ignoring them or are the people around me ignoring them? Or are they being violated either, by myself or by others who are close? And that will often point to an unmet need when you start to step into this space that you can further explore and start to say, okay, if this need was met, how would I think, act, or feel differently? How would I show up differently in this transitionary period?
Okay. And if someone, because I'm going through a transition right now. So if I'm speaking to the listeners right now and I'm thinking back to the last several months or several weeks, first of all, I didn't know what liminal space was. But I was questioning myself. I was lost. I felt confused by what was happening. I didn't recognize myself. I didn't know who Janik was anymore.
Hmm.
Does this seem like what most people going through a situation similar to mine would be like, would feel like?
Absolutely. And so much more. So we enter this space, it is really the unknown. And it kind of can feel like the carpet's been ripped out from under you and you're looking for like something to hold on to, but there are no walls, there is no ceiling, there are no floors. And so you feel sometimes like you are starting to spiral and you
Okay.
look for answers or you look to your former self for some direction, but that version of you you've kind of outgrown. And so the answers that your former self holds is not necessarily satiating, this need that you have because it's based on outdated information, perhaps an outdated value system, um, thoughts, beliefs, habits. And so this disorientation that you might be feeling may come as a result of the fact that you do not have the answers of your future self yet. You've not built the habits, you've not built the confidence, you don't know who she is fully yet. And so you are grasping for guidance, for insight, for direction from a version of you that you're very much developing in real time. So it can feel really disorienting. It can feel like you're lost. But this space can also feel very validating. And so this is where it gets, I won't say confusing, but it is very it is a
Mixed feelings.
yes, absolutely.
Extremely mixed feelings where it feels dark but light, uh, heavy but lighter in terms of weight that you're carrying.
Exactly.
It really feels like what you're explaining is like angels and demons, light and dark, black and white.
Yeah.
It's not really a gray scale here where you're battling with both ends.
So
Um,
I would argue that it is actually all gray. And I say this solely based on my experience, not as a this is what it is, because this space looks and feels different for everyone.
yeah.
And so it can feel black and white for you. In my case, it's all gray, where
Okay.
there are no definite answers. This becomes, and
Mm.
I might even say, translucent in that it feels kind of like a blank canvas. And for people who are very comfortable with change, that blank canvas of, hey, we can go anywhere in this space. I can be anyone in this space can feel very liberating, can feel very creative, can feel very freeing. But for people who are a little more adverse to change or who feel a little more resistance or fear surrounding the unknown, this can feel really suffocating. It can feel like a very dangerous space because you don't have all the comforts that you're familiar with. And so, especially if you're embarking on a transition that you've never yet experienced, and you are someone who thinks in black and white, this space is going to feel intimidating, perhaps.
Mhm. How long does the stage last? I mean, I'm sure it's different from one person to another, but what's your input on that?
So, I mean, I think if we look at it as the journey, right? One might say, well, we're always in transition. We're always evolving. We're always on this journey. But I do think that there are seasons of our life where we feel this space more significantly, where we step into this space and it truly feels like we're in this tunnel of life and we are just looking for the light at the end of it. Like we just got to get out. And this is kind of a non answer because I won't say that there is a timeline for that. But I think that, at least in my experience, what has been most helpful is to truly appreciate this space. And instead of focusing on getting out on the other side, is recognizing what does this tunnel or what does this container hold for me right now. And the more I can appreciate this transition, the more I can use it as a playground for discovering who I am becoming, which version of me I'm stepping into. You know, we talked about crossing that threshold.
Yep.
If we see this space really as the breeding ground for possibility, it's less about focusing on how much time is it going to take to get out and more about, wow, I've got this time to build, I've got this time to discover. And so it's not so much of a time bound journey so much as it is about understanding how this can really serve you. And then I
Mhm.
think with that perspective shift, it's less about when can I get out on the other side and how can I use this space to build who it is that I want to become.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And because it's different from one person to another, um, if someone's finding it hard, someone's not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel or even the light in the tunnel,
Mhm.
how does someone get help? Because everyone's living it differently. How can they get help?
So, what I found really cool is that giving this a name is instantly validating. The fact that there is a name for this space of transition, of discomfort, of confusion, of excitement, of possibility immediately signals, oh, hey, I'm not the only one in this space, right? This
Yes.
exists. And just knowing that there is a name for it, I'm not really one for labels, to be honest, but in this case, it actually really helped me to recognize that, oh, all these mixed feelings that I'm experiencing that made me feel like there's got to be something wrong with me. Like, why isn't this making sense? Why am I not moving through this with more ease? Was instantly validating for those feelings. So I think, step one, knowing that this space exists and it is very much a real thing and that it occurs multiple times in our lives can bring peace of mind, knowing that there are other people going through it. So much so that this is, it has its own name. Knowing that
Yes.
you're in this in community talking about this space, I think is also really helpful. I
You
don't
can
think,
even Google it. I've even Googled liminal space and it gives you information as to what it is and how to go through it and where you can see, physical liminal space. You can have
right,
the emotional. So it really does develop on what it is.
right. And I think what was most helpful for me, and I keep bringing it back to my own personal experience because there are no liminal space coaches and there is no liminal space therapy. And so it really is, I would say, not quite mainstream yet, even though it's not entirely new thinking. It is not terminology that everyone is accustomed to yet. Although, as we discussed earlier, it is something that once we're in it, the feeling is very familiar. Once we start talking about it, it's like, oh, I know exactly what that space is or what that transitionary period is like. But to your point, to your question of, how does someone get help? Again, I would like to offer a perspective shift in that this isn't something that other people have the answers for, and that there are other people who have made it out on the other side and can say, this is how you do it. I think the biggest help is finding community, talking about this space, and linking arms with people who bring out a creative, solution oriented side of you where they will encourage you to think of this space as a playground as opposed to, you know, like a tunnel that you're trapped in. And so I
Okay.
said tunnel earlier, and like for me, it's more of a visual. But if the idea of being in a tunnel is suffocating, and you're like, I don't, I want to see light and I want to see nature. Um, this space can be broad. It is so abstract. It is what you make of it. And I think the biggest help
Absolutely.
is talking about the fact that you're in it. And I think you'll find that, and in some form or fashion, we are all either there or have been there ourselves.
Mhm. I definitely wanna elaborate on that. Samantha, we're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna come back and definitely elaborate on people's perspective towards the liminal space and
Mhm,
how you were talking about the tunnel, that feeling of feeling trapped, but it's all about perspective. So
mhm.
let's take a short break, and
Sure.
we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Woman Spark podcast with Janik. We're here with Samantha Kris. On top of the previous achievements that I've mentioned, Samantha was just recognized again as Microsoft as one of the top 10 speakers to follow in 2025. Uh, she's also a top executive coach in 2024. She has also had the #1 TED Talk on goal settings. Welcome back, Samantha.
Thank you.
So just before the break, we talked about tunnel. We talked about being in the tunnel, how it can be suffocating, but we also talked about a perspective. And I think that that is liminal space is all about perspective, because if you
Mhm.
see it negatively versus positively, it can differ from the path you're going to be on and the experience you're going to have in that liminal space. Can
Right.
you elaborate on that?
What I'll offer is kind of visualization, and this is the first time that I've talked it through, so forgive me if it's a little clunky.
That's fine.
But if you close your eyes and you imagine a black background with a little white circle in it, and that white circle is you. The the background can feel ominous, it can feel vast, it can feel daunting. Now if you instead think about a white canvas, a white background, and you are the little black dot, it can feel equally vast, but lighter. And like there is opportunity, like there is space to create. And when I think about liminal space, this is a visual that often comes to mind. And if I'm feeling like that little white dot on a black canvas or black background, I start to feel like things are so beyond my control that I am
Suffocating.
helpless. Exactly. Like there is so much happening around me that I feel so small and
Mm,
incapable of tackling it. And that slight visualization kind of prompt for me, where I then become a little black dot in a sea of possibility that feels brighter, that feels like I can create, like I
mm,
can expand and explore. There's no right or wrong, right? For
absolutely not.
me, I feel like that white background is more inviting, offers more possibility. And but in either case, there is just as much vastness. There is just as much possibility. And I think this can be helpful in just recognizing when you are in this space. If you feel that overwhelm, if you feel like, great, anything is possible, but the that doesn't help. I need some direction. I don't want there to be infinite possibilities. I just want a single direction. Thinking of it as a blank canvas, kind of assuming the role of the black dot, and then being able to create your direction, for me, is an empowering visualization. So I
I
don't
mean,
know that. Go ahead.
when you guided me and the listeners to close our eyes and look at the black canvas and a white dot, it felt kind of constricting. It felt
Mhm.
a bit a lot more negative. And when you said the white canvas with the black dot, it immediately felt lighter.
Yeah.
So, for any listeners out there, maybe if you're feeling overwhelmed or don't know where to go, or if that process is it ever going to end, I really recommend what you just did, that little visualization of go from the black canvas, because I feel like if you start with the black canvas, you you quickly you'll see the light much quicker when you have the white
For
canvas,
sure. For sure.
as opposed to just trying to see the light immediately. Seeing the dark first and then going to the light will bring
Mhm.
you more positivity. I don't know. That's how it felt for me when I did it, and you guided us through it. So
Good.
thank you for that.
Yeah, again, it's kind of the first time I actually articulated out loud, but when I'm in that space, that's such a helpful visualization for me to shift my perspective. And I think what's important is that there is no right way, wrong way. And, to our previous conversation, I don't necessarily see it black and white, which is interesting. I chose a black and white visualization, but some people may feel so intimidated by the whiteness because it could just be anything and everything. And
Uh-huh.
perhaps thinking of being a white dot on the black canvas actually offers some more um, kind of guardrails in terms of what you can
Yeah.
see. And you may have the visualization of it being, you being a star in the sky, for example. And so we
Wow.
all have different interpretations of this space. And so it isn't necessarily, if you're in the dark, think about going to the light, but rather choose the canvas that feels most appropriate for you and that offers the kind of energetic momentum to take the next best step. And I think that's really important when we talk about liminal space. We put so much pressure on ourselves to have things all figured out that when we can't
Yeah.
see the way out or the big picture, we can get really frustrated with ourselves. And what this space really requires of us is to simply think about the next best step. And I think when we trust ourselves to take one step at a time, we will find that the road will rise to meet us.
Absolutely. Because it's not about forcing or going against the current. Sometimes it's okay to take a break or a step back or self care
Mhm.
in order to appreciate all the steps that you've taken. Because, yes, the liminal space, but also self care and taking one step at a time, as small as they can be. And then when you
Mhm.
turn around, you'll see that actually the small steps you've taken ended up being like a really long road.
Right.
And the change, that's how you see the change, right? Because when you look forward, the steps don't appear. But if you turn around and look at all the little steps that you've taken, that's when you're proud of yourself and you see the change and you see the advancements you've made for yourself.
Absolutely. And I would build on that by saying, if we enter this space with a full roadmap of how we are going to get out, two things. You're building that roadmap based on a prior version of you because the new version of you doesn't have all the answers yet. And so if you have that full roadmap, I would caution you because you're building that on outdated thinking or based on the information that you have as a prior version of you, whereas this
That
space
is
really
so
invites you.
important what you're saying now.
Yeah,
So important because your next steps are not going to be taken by the old you. They're going to be taken by the new
exactly.
you.
Exactly. And so it's actually a good thing to not have those next steps figured out. It means that you're not relying on old, potentially outdated information, which isn't to say we shouldn't use our past experience and insights that we've built over time. But if you've got this entire roadmap and you're thinking, okay, this is the way out, think again. Like allow yourself the creativity and the possibility to let new steps emerge.
Uh-huh.
And part two to that is if your headspace is about making your way out or making your way through, we are leaving so much opportunity on the table because we're rushing the process potentially in trying to get out of this transitionary space when in fact it holds the key to unlock our next level. And the more we're in it, the more we come to appreciate it, the more we're able to find the clues that our future self has left for us in this space.
How about those Ferrari minds, people who need to go so fast and they can't wait, they're impatient for that new version of them to emerge? What would you recommend for them? Because we, well, we live in a society where we're less and less patient. That's number one. But number two, some people just are so uncomfortable in that phase. And what would you recommend for the people who need to have this done and dusted very quickly, but that's not the reality? It's a big one, isn't it?
No, I don't know that I have advice. I'm one of those people. And as much as I love talking about this space and have come to appreciate this space, I struggle with this a lot. I am like a mile a minute and I've got big plans. And I mean, I've got the number one TED talk on goal setting. Like goals are my thing. And when my goals are slowed down by uncertainty and unknown and just the growing pains of becoming who I want to be, I am frustrated. So I wish I could speak from a place of wisdom and say, this is how you do it. I don't have that. But what I can offer is that when I experience those moments of frustration myself, I am, I think what is really helpful is what I just shared comes from a place of having visualized my roadmap out. And then every time I'm like, okay, I got it. This is how I'm going to get out of this place and let's go. I'm realizing this is the roadmap of the former me. The
Yeah.
more I force that, the more I stay in this space frustrated and the more that I surrender to the possibility of new steps emerging, not having the roadmap all figured out, the more opportunity has actually come about for me. And so it is a constant dance with this act of surrender, which is very uncomfortable for me, but it has been my ticket for actually coming to appreciate this space. But it takes, nearly daily reminders where I'm just like, okay, I guess I'll surrender. It hasn't become intuitive for me yet.
One of our previous guests said she's learning to uh, need less FOMO, so fear of
Mhm.
missing out, and
Yeah.
appreciate JOMO, the joy of missing out. So that can also allow you to take a step back and not need to. You're not missing out on anything. You're just living your life, right? So
Yeah, I like that.
the liminal space is your life, is your experience on this planet that you're walking on. So just enjoy it.
What has been really, really helpful for me as well. Sorry. It's no amount of planning could have prepared me for my life right now. And as much as I'm very much in transition with you, and as much as it has not been easy, I am so grateful for where I've landed. And to recenter or to reorient myself and to anchor back into that energy of, I could not have fathomed that this is where I would have ended up and who I would be becoming. Thank goodness my old roadmap didn't work. Thank goodness I had to abandon it in this liminal space and trust, to just take that next best step and trust that the road would rise to meet me and allow that road to emerge and unfold in real time because this plan, I mean, it's like I said, it's come with its challenges, that's for sure, but it is unfolding beautifully. And I would be so bummed if I was missing out on this version of me because I had relied too heavily on a path that I thought was the one.
And usually when we don't plan anything, a lot of little surprises that we hadn't expected to emerge do emerge. And those
Exactly.
are the little gifts that life give us.
And that's what happens when you slow down. That's what you're able to see and
Ah,
recognize, right? When we're going a mile a minute, we don't see those little gifts on the sideline or in our peripheral vision. And when we're in this space and truly commit to experiencing it, we find these gifts.
Samantha, thank you very much. Before we conclude, can you tell us some ways you can help our listeners and where can we find you?
Absolutely. So samanthakris.com, probably the easiest spot. It has access to all social handles, emails. So if you have any questions, don't be shy. You can also find some information on an upcoming course that I'm giving, which is launching September 8th, which we didn't touch too much on today about public speaking, but that is another huge passion of mine. And the concept of liminal space is actually how I support a lot of my speakers because their stories, some of their best stories, occur in this space. And I'm really intent on bringing more stories to life that are happening in real time. Like I think when we hear from speakers and we read books and we listen to podcasts, we hear about the before and the after, what it was like before an incident or a life choice or catalyst for change, and then what it was like on the other side of it. But there's so much gold in the in between. So I'm really, really committed to helping people share their stories of transition and becoming and catalyzing change in real time. So if that's something that is of interest to you and you've ever wanted to give a TED talk, I open the doors twice a year to my TEDx
Yes,
course.
please.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I might be a little biased, but it is a great 4-week course. We open the doors for our fall cohort September 8th. So you can either join the next group or get on the wait list for the next one. And yeah, you'll find all the information on the website.
Thank you very much, Samantha. And honestly, thank you for sharing about the liminal space because I'm pretty sure it's going to enlighten a lot of people, a lot of women and listeners who are going through a breakup or going through just a life change.
Mhm.
And now to better appreciate the process, I think that that's really, really what I take from today's conversation with you is just appreciating the path. It's not just a series of events. It's not happening to you, but it's happening for you. And just to appreciate the journey, I think that I really appreciate you elaborating on that. So thank you
My
very
pleasure. Thank
much.
you for having me.
And as she mentioned before, you can find her on www.samanthakris, SAMANTHAKRIS.com. And you'll get all the information you need on there. This is it for us. If you want to get involved with the Be Guided, Be Inspired community and you want to share what kind of impact you've had or what kind of experience you've lived, come and meet us on the platform and we'll connect together at www.beguidedbeinspired.com. Let's change the world of women one conversation at a time. Thank you for listening. Keep shining, you beautiful ladies. See you next time. Love to you all. Bye.